We have finally made it. We are finally here to One Piece chapter 1050. We are 50 chapters away from chapter 1100, and God forbid, or God willing, depending on you, we are halfway to chapter 2100. Now, if you don't know, now you know. Of course, you can watch my full live stream reaction to the chapter on both my Cole Requiem and my Twitch.tv channels, link in the box below. That's number one. And number two, if you don't know, now you definitely know, we do structure the chapter reviews very systematically with number one, the structure and the pacing components of the chapter, number two, the character components of this chapter, and then number three, of course, is the story progression components of this chapter. And there is, of course, clearly a lot when it comes to the story progression of this chapter, but do not underestimate the character components for this chapter as well, particularly the combat-oriented character components for this chapter. But before we get to all of that, I do have to give, for this video, a brief word for today's sponsor.
Okay.
This video is brought to you by none other than the Surfshark VPN. Consistently, Surfshark VPN is a high-quality VPN service that is way more affordable than the rest of the competition, without a doubt. And you need as much money as possible with all these markets tanking. And it's at these affordable rates with so many amazing features that you can utilize no matter where you are in the world, considering how many servers Surfshark VPN has across the world. Whether you're using Android, iOS, Linux, Windows, no matter what you have, Surfshark VPN can protect your online identity with great features like the Clean Web feature that can remove any malware, any phishing attempts, any malice that could be coming your way. And when you're out on your phone and you have no idea who could be trying to get access to your phone, that is a very important thing to have protection when you're out and about. On top of that, if you want to get access to any region-gated content, like for example, my own content, which a lot of times is region blocked in certain countries, it is what it is. Well, you get access to said region-gated content, whether it's my videos or Netflix or Disney Plus, by easily using Surfshark VPN, changing your location where you're located in, and then boom, just like that, you gain access to any region-gated content, easy peasy. So on that note, go in the description box down below and use code COLE, that is KOL, to not only get 83% off, but also 3 months free off of your purchase of Surfshark VPN, and you can cancel anytime, no charge. Once again, use code COLE, and thank you Surfshark VPN for being awesome. And now, let's get back to the video at hand.
Good day, sir!
Now that all being said, let's get right into it with the pacing and the structure for this chapter. For this chapter, there are a total of 8 parts for this chapter. Number 1 is Kaido falling through the ground. Number 2 is outside the Flower Capital, focusing on Yamato, Luffy, and Momo. Number 3 is in the Flower Capital with Togami Tetsu and Toko. And this includes a minor flashback in this part. Number 4 is back to Onigashima, with Nekomamushi announcing to the people and to the soldiers that they have won officially, and then there's cheering and celebration in conjunction with the outside of Onigashima, with Momonosuke talking to Zunisha. That is all part 4. Part 5 is Onigashima again inside the main floor, where Kaido's men still want to fight to a degree. That's all number 5. Number 6 is the underground magma pool, where we see it for a panel. Number 7 is the Udon prisoner mines with Babanuki in conjunction with the underwater volcano erupting. And then finally, number 8 is back to the Flower Capital with Momonosuke arriving in front of the people with Hiri and Red Scabbards in tow. So those are the 8 parts for the pacing and chapter structure. The pace for the most part is fine, though nothing really too great, but we are cutting to various parts of the country for aftershock of the Bajran gun and certain events and things like that. And then also see what happened to Kaido and potentially Big Mom, but I'll get to that later. The cross-section I also think is actually a nice touch. At least now I think it's a nice touch, because we do get a better geographical sense of Wano country and what's going on From the previous time we got a cross-section, during the reveal of Port Mogura, in chapter 954, when Apu first arrives with the Number Giants. The section where Kaido's men start attacking again, I was going to put in the previous part for the overall pace and structure, but on page 11, when Momonosuke starts to feel the earthquake, there are these narrow transition panels that indicate a distinct location and focus shift. Therefore, even though I would kind of put it at 7 parts of the chapter, because those panels exist, now it's 8 parts. Though ultimately, the weirdest part when it comes to pacing and structure for this chapter is not that part, it's the Momo part, right, with Hiri and the scabbards on his back. We do jump in time because clearly Momonosuke and Hiri have met, and that was all done off screen before they arrived to the Flower Capital itself. The overall pace, I think, is subparts okay. Not good, but not bad either. And now we get into the character components for this chapter, and surprise, surprise, off the gate, you wouldn't see it coming. It is what it is, though. Number 1 is Trafalgar D, Water Law. Correct. We see the full results of what Law did with his Puncture Willy in chapter 1039. Law was able to extend his sword for miles, even below the regular sea level, into the magma chamber that was below the entirety of Wano country. We knew how wide the hole was based on the aerial view that we see in 1039, but also keep in mind that Law was on the island that was floating at the time. Onigashima was floating in the air. So the distance here between where Law activated his Puncture Willy to this magma chamber, it is easily more than the distance between the regular Blue Sea and Skypiea in the White Sea, which is around 10 kilometers or 6.2 miles. That is correct. Law's sword can extend more than the distance Kaido fell when he was first introduced in the story. In fact, it's probably double, potentially triple the distance. Of course, this is assuming here that Oda is drawing this cross-section to scale, meaning that Slim Fuji that we see in this cross-section is the same height and size of the Slim Fuji that is normally on the island. And we know this by simply understanding just how huge Onigashima is in terms of its size, and how Law could previously extend his room to cover, at least for an instant, an entire mountain range of ice mountains in Punk Hazard. We also see that Big Mom is falling face first into the magma chamber in 1040 with the bombs. So the bombs haven't exploded, and there was a white light in front of her face, and that white light was the magma in the magma chamber. So the fact that Law could pulverize that much ground with shockwaves, knowing he could have gone even deeper if he was not on a floating island, means that without a doubt, Law has one of the strongest attacks in One Piece and the greatest sword feat in the verse by far. And again, when you think about scaling here, just remember that Onigashima is a place filled with super structures. That's number 1. Number 2, Monkey D, Luffy. Luffy can punch Kaido more than the distance between the Blue Sea and Fishman Island, I'd argue, over 10 kilometers through solid bedrock into a magma chamber that is below normal sea levels. In the process, he makes fissures on the ocean floor bedrock underneath Onigashima, that section of Wano country, creates an earthquake that is felt through various parts of the entirety of the Wano country, and then finally it all leads up to an underwater volcanic eruption. So even though it's hard to tell just how much of Law's Puncture Willy and the bombs that went off, how much of that contributed to the fissures in the bedrock, the crack to the furthest right in the cross section seems to be a newly formed crack that's the result of Luffy's Monkey God gun. This is actually even more impressive, without a doubt, than Law's feat, since the entire thing for Luffy is predicated on physical force. This is also, on Luffy's part, no direct contact with the ground itself, very similar to who Doflamingo in the past with Dressrosa. And he's also, like Adolphi again, punching through Kaido's Flame Dragon drum form. So there's counter force to Luffy's attack, and still Luffy can punch Kaido that far down into a magma chamber. And keep in mind this too, Kaido is a gigantic creature. He is several times the size of Oars or Little Oars Jr. when he's in dragon form. So this right here is arguably the most powerful attack in One Piece history, in the entirety of One Piece. But that'll be saved for another video in the future. And then finally for Luffy for character, we see him being treated when the volcano erupts and he smiles, but he's in regular form. Like, there is no old age effects that we saw in chapter 1045 on Luffy's face. So this could actually be the result of his Gigant form specifically, meaning that when Luffy goes full giant Gigant, the after effects of that would be him turning older. So him being in regular Gear 5 potentially has no after effects. So we'll see how that goes in the future. That could mean a lot, honest to God. Next for character is Toko. Toko changing her message on the skyboat to say, "Daddy, thank you," rather than "I want to see Daddy," is a very nice touch for her character, and also Yasue's character as well. She understands the sacrifice her father made for her and potentially, in her mind, potentially of course, the future of this country, and it shows that she's gained some maturity for her age. This also harkens back to what Kaido said in 994 when he tells the Scabbards that he likes the way of the samurai and how death completes a person. Yasue won't be forgotten by the hearts that he has touched, like on some Dr. Hiraluk action, and arguably that completes Yasue's character. Next is Momonosuke. Momonosuke decides to not open the borders of Wano country yet. Impressive determination and potential judgment, considering how he is still the mental age of an 8-year-old, especially on the heels of reading Oden's journal, knowing what the prophecy, and yet still decide to go against, at least for the time being, going against his father's wishes. Okay, Momonosuke is a very good character, and we're not done yet with this character. At the end of the chapter, Momonosuke disengages his transformation, seemingly at will. So because his body is older now, and because of his latest experiences in making the flame clouds to save the entirety of Onigashima from falling, he has better control now, at least ideally, of his abilities. This is already noted to, actually, in chapter 1008, when Momonosuke explains how he was getting better at controlling his powers. So it's been a steady progression with Momo getting better and better and better at controlling his abilities, and because he's older, he may have now even greater control as a result because of that age jump. Finally, for character, we have Zunisha. And very briefly, it is following Momo's orders to a T, meaning that it is not bound by some sort of prophecy-filled duty to do anything, despite the Joy Boy being in Wano country and hearing the drums of liberation. For the time being, not prophecy-bound, clearly. And then finally, we have the story component for this chapter, also a hefty part as well. Number one here, we have the cover story. Ichiji and Reiju break into the world of books to get Yonji and Niji. Again, we have seen Cracker a while back in the cover story, so at some point, they gotta meet Cracker. It is what it is. And then also, the fire started in the last chapter cover page before Ichiji and Reiju pull up. So who started the fire? Pudding. There's a chance here that it's Pudding. Second thing here is this. We do get, once again, this updated cross-section of Wano country from chapter 954. You can put the two together side by side and look at the updated geography of Wano country, at least that side of the country. But note to this, Port Mogura is in Hakumai, which is in the further east end of Wano, based on the regular Wano country map. This means that the holes that Big Mom and Kaido were put into via the cross-section viewpoint is actually closer to the reader, and Port Mogura is actually behind the holes that Luffy and Law made. And once again, that is from the cross-section viewpoint. And also we see the part where Kaido lifted off Onigashima from the bedrock that was supporting Onigashima. Keep in mind, Onigashima is a huge island in terms of scale, and it's only that small section. It's only that small section of the actual bedrock and landmass of the entirety of Wano country. The magma chamber is also new, but this cross-section does go deeper than the previous cross-section, actually below sea level. And then finally, the fissures that we see on the Onigashima side of the country have again formed because of the actions of Law, the bombs, and Luffy. And because there's multiple fissures, there's actually a chance where even more underwater volcanoes may start to erupt. Now, part 3 of the story, real quick, and I quote, "The final battle in the skies of Wano, winner, Straw Hat Luffy." The narrator has made the official change to the title card that we get from the winner in 1043. It is official, Luffy has won this fight. Now, number 4 of the story, Kaido is clearly chilling in a pool of magma in this underground magma chamber. However, it is hard to tell if the second silhouette is Big Mom. I've asked on Twitter, and it is clear that folks are very unclear as to what exactly is going on. The main other option for the second silhouette appears to be Kaido's jacket. Not Big Mom, Kaido's jacket. Big Mom's design would ideally be a lot more clearer, like Kaido's outline would be, especially if she's been in this magma chamber for a period of time. Now, folks are saying, well, she's actually dead, but that does contradict her own words at the end of 1040, where she says, "Kid, Law, they'll pay for this. Don't you dare assume that this'll kill me." And she was saying that as she was staring down the magma chamber. So Oda is clearly, once again in this arc, Oda is clearly keeping things vague until the right time. And potentially the right time is soon, because the volcanic eruption probably blasted out Kaido and potentially Big Mom. Now, number 5, once again, Zunisha will not move, and Momonosuke is not going to open the borders of Wano country yet. You can infer many different things from this. Like, for example, maybe Momonosuke wants to go on the journey with Mugiwara, Aitakeno, Yumemo, and be a cabin boy. That's a possibility here. But even though Joy Boy is here, Momonosuke feels like it's not the right time, which means that the opening of Wano country's borders is more likely now a One Piece final arc, final saga move for a specific reason, rather than Luffy is here, so let's change the entire geography of the country for him. Okay, there must be something more that has to happen before the country's borders are opened. Like, for example, it might go hand in hand with the destruction of Fishman Island, or let's say the final war, something of that sort. Which also means that the world government who are here cannot enter Wano country so easily and take it over now that all the fighting is done. And mind you this too, the ships are they're still near Zunisha, stun locked. And then finally for story, number 6, the citizens of the Fire Capital finally, oh my god, finally notice that something is up, and they see the gigantic explosion of the underwater volcano. This probably means that the Fire Festival is over, and now a lot of lore and explanation has to be done on the part of Momonosuke, Hiri, and their scavengers to the citizens of Wano country and tell them what is what. Finally, they have noticed. So the theme of Oda that has been, this theme of Oda keeping this major battle a secret from the citizens, like the storm covering the entire island, or using the R room to silence Big Mom, the explosion, or digging Kaido deep to the ground and no one knows, as if like their wishes came true without them even noticing. It is finally over. We're done with this I do not like this theme. I do not like this running trend of this arc. Honest to God. So, thoughts and rating. Overall, I did not like at first the cross section, but now I definitely do. Yes, now I definitely do, because it does add, I think, a lot of necessary details and understanding what exactly happened with a lot of these major moments during the fight. That's the first thing here. The second thing here is that I am impressed. Momonosuke. Momonosuke, in so many ways, is not like Oden, for better or for worse, and in this arc, more often, for the better. And the borders of Wano country staying closed, I am very, very curious as to see what happens from here. But I'll keep it a buck. Once again, I am not a fan of the style that Oda had Kaido go down. No pun intended. Even though Luffy's attack is extremely, extraordinarily impressive. Again, arguably one of the strongest attacks, if not the strongest attack in One Piece. We need a cross-section to actually understand the full scope of it. It lacks a lot of that stylistic flair compared to previous finishing moves, like, for example, the Katakuri one with the King Cobra, or the King Kong gun against Doflamingo, or the Jet Gatling barrage against Rob Lucci and various other major villains. Kaido's is unfortunately quite lackluster in the stylistic flair compared to those final attacks, especially when Law does something similar and treats Big Mom in a very similar way. Does it go hand in hand with Oda's theme they want to achieve for this arc? Yes, it does. But it does feel a bit underwhelming because there's no immediate gratification, and then it's delayed up until the underwater volcano erupts. So, and mind you too, this clash between Luffy and Kaido with the Bajrang gun versus the Flaming Drum Dragon form is cool, very cool. But it lasted for about 2 chapters where we get a montage of Wano country citizens suffering for the past 20 years, and then a sloppy Kaido flashback, and other dumb things that kind of prolonged the chapter for dead air, just so we can get the full closure in the nice, neat 1050. No. These past 3 chapters could have easily have been better structured, without a doubt. And then also, Hiri and Momonosuke meeting off screen for the first time, and there's a time jump forward. We could be getting that flashback, yes, but I would have really liked to see the initial meeting that was a long time coming between brother and sister, one waiting 20 years, the other being sent forward in time by 20 years, and then actually being up-aged by 20 years. Like, no. This, I thought, was a miss on Oda's part, even if we do get a flashback later on to that moment. So all in all, oh wait, one last thing here. Yamato catching Luffy as he falls, Nakama status. So all in all, chapter rating, things I like, things I don't like. Chapter rating is going to be a 6.5 out of 10. That's an okay plus chapter of One Piece in my book.